Warning, some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Who dares awaken me from my slumber? Bigfoot's Barber Shop, aka Brian Barber. Yes, it is always good to see you stopping into the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Yet please, I am starving. Allow me to feed. Much better. Absolutely delicious. And now that I am fully charged and the shackles have been removed, I do appreciate that, Mr. Barber. And without further ado, it is time to take a walk into the darkness. My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back once again to Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. We again have Bigfoot's Barber Shop, aka Brian Barber, hanging out with us tonight. And to the audience, it is always nice to see our blood preferences once again align. How you doing tonight, Brian?
Doing good. Ready to hear some good encounters.
This is excellent, my friend. And how you been in general? What have you been up to?
Been doing pretty good. Basically a whole lot of studying and getting stuff together for a video coming up. You know, we did the rant last week, and I'm going to go elaborate on that. I have a collaboration with somebody who's even sassier than I am, so we're going to put a disclaimer up and a forewarning that the language may be harsh.
Yeah, like we were stating earlier, unfortunately, while my Chromebook's loading up here, yes, to everybody, I do 92% of everything through my iPhone, but I draw a lot of stuff on my Samsung tablet, but I do not have a computer set up because I don't really consider my Chromebook at 7 years old a setup, but I do write my book from it, and it's loading right now because we're actually going to dive into two very interesting encounters from China. Yes, China, because a lot of people have always wondered in the past and even in the present if this is something that occurs over there as well. And my answer is yes. But as Brian and I were talking about, unfortunately, yeah, there's just so much horrible stuff out there. Like recently, it was funny that you had talked about that video because that was sent to us. And to be quite honest with you, at first, everything, I don't know, seemed pretty interesting. Dark, right? Middle of nowhere, pulls down his side road to go to his house, right? Opens the gate. And then all of a sudden, the costume actually looks okay, right? It looks decent. Then as soon as the headlights hit it and it starts trying to make its way and back into the forest, it looks like an 80-year-old granny in a costume trying to escape. And there's no way that thing is hunting down any sort of deer or anything, that's for sure.
It couldn't get out of its own way when it was trying to get back into the forest. I mean, the way it kind of stood there, and then it kind of took like a little bunny hop. It was like,
Yeah,
And then you
brutal.
could
And
see the
that,
feet flop.
yep, yep, that was definitely unfortunately submitted to us. Same thing with the whole werewolf supposedly knocking on the window and the guy has the lights off the whole time. And Al actually did a nice breakdown of that, the Squash Father, about how that's, a nice big hoax too. And it's just really amusing how these things keep on getting recycled around. And honestly, you would think people could, geez, on crow, every 2 seconds, oh, check this trail came out. No, it's AI. It's like, look, I mean, maybe it's just because I'm trained being a graphics designer and videographer, and also I'm an artist, so I'm hypersensitive to the details and picking up on things that are altered in photos. Because I mean, every time I make a photo, I alter the contrast, the saturation, the fade, all that stuff, the brightness. So I mean, there's just so much you can do, and I really wish people would pump the brakes on the furry outfit videos and also the terrible AI images that they're not even good.
Yeah, when you see the mouth move and the growls about 3 seconds behind it, it almost looked like old black and white when they were filming them by reels. The way it jumps up like frame drop break. Looks like it jumps down to 10 frames per second.
There's two of mine that are actually favorites in regards of just being gutter trash. One was submitted to us of, it was basically an image that they animated, meaning, I'm talking about, it's not like a video, but it's not just an image. It cuts, because supposedly this guy worked for a secret agency and was out chasing the nefarious Dogman. And he caught this while he was recording it. So it's kind of like a garbage, straight up like garbage right there. And that one was submitted as, again, an excellent video that, hey, everybody, like, check this out. And it's just so bad. And the one you mentioned is super bad. The Gable film is super bad. So I mean, I could go on, but there's definitely some pretty horrible ones out there that people are like, hey, you really need to check this out. And good news, all right, I got the Chromebook all fired up here. So I'm in Austria, which is obviously not the section we need to be in here. So
Yeah, the
I'm
Gable film is one people are still willing to fight tooth and nail over, though. That blows my mind because I know two of the guys involved.
Yes. So correct me if I'm wrong here, okay? Again, you're gonna have to educate me on this. Apparently, there's someone claiming or trying to take claim that they made this video. I don't know anything about that. All I know for a fact is the only person I saw that was having any sort of claim that he made this video was the guy in Monster Quest like 22 years ago that showed all the equipment that he had on his property, all the rundown snowmobiles that were in the video, and he pretty much showed how he made it, and he showed how he made a part two. And what they just did is they put it in a box at a yard sale, and it just got sold. Okay, and then people ran with that, but he
He
himself said it was fake. Look at it, it is fake.
he gave that to the guy that made the Dogman song. I know his partner Jack
Steve
O'Malley,
Cook,
but
right?
yeah, he gave that to him as a fake. They perpetuated the whole thing to get more interest in the Dogman. They didn't want to make any
Exactly.
money off it, but it was intentionally released that way as being the backstory was it was sold in a garage sale. So when Monster Quest came to town, Jack warned me, yeah, Monster Quest is in town. There's going to be some big surprises. I'm like, really? Can you? And he's like, no, I can't tell you. So yeah, that whole thing was staged from the very beginning just to drum up because I believe it was in the according to Jack or Steve's song the seventh year. So they wanted to bring the Dogman back to life, so to say, because interest had kind of faded on it around here.
Interesting. That makes a ton of sense right there. And again, correct me if I'm wrong here. Like, I mean, Steve Cook's obviously the man, but people again need to pump the brakes on the fact saying that he created the dog man phenomenon. He did not. Linda
No,
Godfrey was researching the dog man before that song ever came out. 1887, there were reports. Last time I checked, Steve Cook is not a supernatural individual that was around in 1887 pumping around the lore song. So, I mean, people for some reason just say, "Oh yeah, there was no sort of Dogman activity until he dropped that song." And it's like, no, that pretty much, like you said, just gave momentum for people to be like, "Oh crap, well maybe I am going to talk about this,"
Yeah, and the Gable film came out after the song, which is why that guy went to Steve to give him the movie.
Exactly. And
You
dude,
know?
look how fake that is. The ghillie suit, man. Come on, bro. It doesn't even move like a dog, man. I was never sold on that. Even before I understood, I've always been fascinated with being creative. And I was, acting and doing some modeling stuff when I was like 16, 17. Pretty much is when I started off in that stuff. So I don't know. I'd always seen like special effects and things like that. Honestly, man, that didn't move like how I would depict a dog man from when I had heard Jody Cook and other people speaking about it.
Yeah, and that had me when it first came out because I didn't know what a ghillie suit was. But I thought, God, it doesn't look like a costume, but it doesn't move right. There's something really off. It looks like
Yes,
a person in a blanket.
exactly. And I didn't really know what the ghillie suit was either. That you stated that, but just something was off on it. You know what I mean? Just that intuition where you're like, no, this doesn't feel organic. It just feels staged. And then, sure enough, of course, it's staged. And
Yep.
people, for some reason, just want to fire to that, man.
And the only reason why it came out that it was, fake was because Monster Quest looked into it and they knew this was going to explode, so they better come clean. That's the only reason they admitted to it.
Yep. And I don't know. It's just mind boggling, like I said. So
Oh
for
yeah,
anyone,
and the same thing
uh,
in the Bigfoot world. There's a Jacob, and I'll be the first to admit I was sold on him up until about 3 months ago. They're called the Jacobs photos, and they're trail cams. It looks like a Bigfoot, like with its head upside down with a couple of bears,
mhm.
like a baby Bigfoot playing. And I thought it was real, and there's a whole bunch of people that thought it was real. And then Jeff Meldrum is the one who went in and lightened the picture up, like really brightened it.
Of
And sure enough, there's a bear tail.
course.
It was a bear just in a really awkward position that made it look like a Bigfoot was standing on his head or something. Has there been any Dogman that ones that you went, okay, this is good, and then all of a sudden it went, oh man, I'm gonna eat that one.
Well, like you were just saying, first thing is always just, the darkness and things like that. Most likely, whoever submitted that photo, unless they were 100% organic, just really trying to show a photo, they probably went in and purposely dimmed it up to make it darker to fall more into the category of trying to perceive what it is that they want to. And that's a big thing that my science team preaches is that there's good science and then there's bad science, okay? Meaning same thing. There's good researchers and there's bad researchers. There's researchers that are always going to try to twist their narrative to have something fit it no matter what, which I don't know those individuals, so I don't know if that's what they were trying to do with that image or not, but seems to me like always someone is trying to twist the image to fit into what it is, the criteria that they want. And like my science team said, that's a horrible way to approach things, because when you come up with a hypothesis and a theory, it doesn't necessarily mean you want it to be true, okay? But if it's falling into line as to what's occurring, then that's real science. You don't create a theory based off how you want something to work and then rearrange the pieces so it fits into that puzzle.
Yeah, the facts make the theory. The theory doesn't make the facts.
Yes, exactly, man. So I'm with you totally on all of that stuff. And I just encourage people to, whether it's stuff that I sit here and talk about with my hosts or things you find on your own, or when you're listening to other journalists and scientists or whatever, doctors, obviously, just do your own research as well. All those things are out there, okay? And, that's how you're able to differentiate what's quality and what's not. I do encourage that. We're going to hit up China here, Brian. I'm going to
All right, let's go
hopefully,
to China.
yeah, hopefully I'm going to blow your mind a little bit because, yeah, these are some interesting spots right here. And man, everybody cut me some slack here. I'm going to try to pronunciate these locations as much as I can, but oh, some of the wording is quite hard. 2014, Tian Shan Mountains in Jing, China. Gross. A woman named Chin is hiking on a remote trail when she begins to smell an awful and overwhelming odor of wet dog, rotten flesh, and urine. Suddenly, she hears loud rustling coming from behind her. Turning around, Chin sees an enormous bear wolf man with long, shaggy brown fur, what seemed to be a mane, glowing yellow eyes, and a hunched over posture, beginning to walk towards her on two canine-like legs. Wondering what it was she was seeing, she screams out in fear while throwing her backpack and gear at the creature. Chin began running down the opposite side of the trail as fast as she could. She claimed she could hear the creature, confused at first as to what was thrown at it, as it then began to quickly pursue her, eventually only giving up when Chin was able to flag down a large group of hikers coming up the trail.
Shows intelligence right off the top. To me, the fact that it got confused. I mean, in the middle of the mountains, you're not going to tell me that somebody was just waiting in a suit hoping somebody was going to pass by.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, exactly. When people are like, "Oh yeah, they're just out in the woods right there."
Yeah. I mean, what are the odds of that happening? And then the fact that it probably was totally baffled by the fact that little thing threw something at it. Like, what the heck? What else is she packing?
Yeah, exactly, right? So
Uh,
that's what I'm saying. It's confused for a second, and it's just a really interesting case because, as we talked about, just in general, Chinese history is so interesting, but it's not easily accessible just because of cultural differences and such. So it's really hard to find a lot of history unless it's shared with you. And one of the more ancient cases that was shared to me is some really, really old Chinese art depicting what looks to be samurai like, which is obviously Japanese, but it looks like some sort of samurai like armor, which potentially, I don't know if Chinese had armor like that at a point in time or not, but this is Chinese art and it shows jet black looking canines with glowing eyes in the background, which is super interesting.
yeah, actually, it's funny we bring up Chinese history. There's I'm going off a little bit of a tangent, but have you heard of the video game that just came out and is getting reviews beyond belief? That Black Myth Wukong.
I've vaguely heard about that. Yes.
It's based on Chinese mythology, and I know two of the boss fights are dogmen looking creatures. So that's pretty interesting that you were talking about, how hard it is to find, but because this is based in Chinese mythology, the story is it's from a book.
That's beautiful right
The
there.
Monkey Black Myth, the Monkey King, or something like that.
That was like Assassin's Creed Odyssey as well, based off of historical aspects. That was one of my favorite games. I'm not an Assassin's Creed guy really, and I don't play that many video games 'cause I have no time, but they're cool for sure. And that actually has some strange, like cynocephaly, like creatures in it as well. So it is truly baffling and awesome though, because again, like I said, China's been around for quite a long time, okay? And correct me if I'm wrong, they are the oldest modern day culture, correct?
Yeah, they got the oldest recorded history, right? If I remember right.
Exactly. So that to me is just straight up mind boggling, and just that being able to hear those aspects. So, and I actually got another one right here for you too that is from 2018. Shuan, China, a local villager named Li is walking home when suddenly he hears loud growling and sniffing coming from somewhere nearby. Turning around and quickly trying to scan the area, Lee sees a strange, 6 to 8 foot tall, jet black, bipedal, human looking like canine with pointy ears and glowing eyes and an extremely long snout, seemingly jogging towards him from around 50 yards away. Mortified, he begins screaming loudly out for help, which seemed to deter the creature as it stopped in his tracks and Lee bolted for his nearby village as some of his friends had begun to come outside.
And see, both of these fall into that category, like a predatory response. What do you do when a mountain lion is stalking you? If you turn around, you yell and act as big as you can. And here those guys are doing it, and it seems like it kind of helped save him at this point by screaming. And because if he hadn't turned around, we wouldn't have that report probably.
Yeah, definitely on both of them for sure, like you said. And I mean, I've been trying to figure that out a little bit more. And I think it is, like you said, it's based off evaluating the situation, okay? Because, like some of my science team was saying, unfortunately, we as humans think that predators are all super hardy, but some of them are cannons, meaning like mountain lions, for example, they don't have that long of a life expectancy and they're all offense. They actually can be beat up and injured quite easily. And same thing with, for example, leopards. Leopards are crazy gnarly offensive, but then I've seen baboons beat them up with a stick before, right? And you would think it sure might have just ticked it off, but it made it so it ended up being unalived, whereas coyotes and wolves and things seem to be able to take more of a pounding like bears. And yeah, it's definitely truly interesting right there because I think what they're doing is just evaluating the situation, meaning, okay, she was by herself, but then she approaches a large crowd of people. I mean, sure, could it take out the whole crowd of people? Maybe, but what are the odds of it potentially also being injured too? And then who knows, whatever its healing capabilities, is it a glass cannon where it can't really heal that well, or is it like a hyena, which have been documented to survive wounds that would be mortal for any other predator? So if it's like a hyena, then it gets half of its chest blasted off or something, or gored. Then sure, it can pull the bullet out or heal its wound potentially, and not really just lay low for a bit. But if it's like a cougar or something along the lines of that, and it comes in and tries to attack something, sure, the adrenaline could keep it going for a bit, which there's tales of that from war where people have mortal wounds, yet they don't really end up passing away until they calm down, and then the blood level drops, their blood pressure, and then they bleed out, etc. So who knows? Like when it comes in and it's all jacked up on adrenaline and people shoot it up a bunch of times and it doesn't really seem to do the most damage, it screams and it runs off. We don't know. Maybe it goes back to the cave system, heals itself, or it is no longer in existence. So I think a big part of it is evaluating the situation. I mean, this person has a bunch of dogs with them. Okay, is that really worth it? Or here comes this woman or whatever. Oh, that seems to be pretty easy right there. Or an elderly person walking by themselves. Or you see what I'm saying? But if they see two
Yeah.
hunters, is it worth me getting my arm blasted to try to get them?
Yeah, what's the phrase? Risk versus reward scenario. It's like when my friend and I go out in the woods bigfooting. She's about 5 feet tall, and so there's always a discussion. Are they going to try to go after the 5 foot quick little one, or are they going to go after the bodybuilder type who's got a lot of steaks and chops on him? So
That's really good. I mean, that's a great question. Most likely, if it was a single predator, they're probably going to snag her. But if it was a group, they're probably going to come for humans.
yeah, the
And
Bigfoot's
it's,
barbershop buffet will be the next video.
yeah, it wouldn't be good to be covering you in one of the missing 11 cases for sure, man. And
No,
that,
no, I'd prefer not to end up in a database somewhere as a statistic.
yeah, no, that wouldn't be the best for your channel or my channel for sure,
It'll be
man. So,
the bear did it though. Quick to the deep
right.
cut.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that strikes me when you hear about these encounters, especially the ones with the smell, it's like who's going to put a costume on, bathe themselves in that stuff, with what was it, wet dog and urine and
Rotten
rotting
flesh.
flesh, and then sit there for hours and hours and hope somebody walks by.
So
I
logically,
mean,
man, like you and I, okay, I want to say logically, okay, no one would do that. Unfortunately, dude, I've seen some really sick things that people have done across the news where people were hiding in like outhouses and stuff, man, and like they had to climb through like the sewage pipe to get in there, dude, because they were sick, twisted individuals, man. And then you got people that have like unalive family members and they were in bed with them when other family members came home. So I don't know, man. I would like to think, like you said, no one in the right frame of mind would, but there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that aren't in the right frame of mind. To also add clarity to that topic, you're really putting your life in a whole lot of danger out there if you're running around in a dogman suit where you can barely move because some bear or something, or
Oh yeah.
some wolf or cougar is really gonna get you. And then especially if you're reeking like that and stuff. So I don't know. I just feel like you said the odds of though being in some of these remote places, just the odds of how are you going to even know someone's coming up there? You know what I mean? If it's in a public place, dude, or all of a sudden it's across Main Street, downtown Westbrook, Maine at 9 p.m., sure, it might seem a little bit more staged. But again, to defend that, man, I was driving home one night, dude. I don't know. It was in the morning. It was like 12:45 in the morning, and there was some fog coming across a little bit. And I was downtown Westbrook, Maine, right near a gas station, and there's a river beside us, dude. But man, there is no large forest for at least a 15 to 20-minute drive, dude. And I'm sitting there, right? And I'm just jamming out and just thinking. And all of a sudden, I see what looks to be a freaking moose running across the road in front of me as I'm waiting at the red light through the mist. And I'm like, yo, what the Christmas trees, dude? Am I really this tired right now? Shake my head. No, dude. The moose slips on the pavement as it's trying to gain its traction, stands up, looks at me, and then just runs off down past like these apartment buildings, kind of like down towards like the river. And I was like, what the frig, dude? That was an enormous moose, man, that legit just went across Westbrook Main Street at 12:45 in the morning, which that's I guess isn't as hard to believe as if someone says it was a dog, man. But again, like I told you, bro, like this is the greater Portland area, man. Like there's at least a 20-minute drive to get to a large enough forested area. You would still be surprised to see a bull moose that big, but
Well, I live in Traverse City, and we've got over 500 homes here. There's no woods for a couple miles. We're on the outskirts of town, and with summer going on, there's probably 50,000 people around. And we've had 3 bear in the park this year already.
that's what I'm saying. Like what the
And big
heck?
bear. It's like, man, I don't know if
Where'd
they
you
come in.
come from?
As bad as this sounds, people tend to let their cats run pretty free, so there's a bunch of stray cats.
Yeah.
I'm wondering,
Yum yum,
easy pickings,
unfortunately.
but I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I'd never seen a cinnamon black bear before, but there was one 3 doors down from me, sitting there.
That's bizarre.
A person has a car out there that they use for storage, and the bear was trying to figure out what was in the car.
That's just what I'm saying, my friend. And so it is, I guess, sure, we can't always write off the bizarre because the things we just spoke about is bizarre. And I mean, I've seen also situations where bears rip off car doors. So again, that always makes me wonder when people are in their car when it's just running beside them, truly it's just trying to mess with them because I think it would have no problem ripping it off. I mean, I've had some actually really aggressive encounters. One that was submitted to us was a young couple that was driving and had this creature running beside their car, and then it was trying to open the doors that they had locked, but obviously they're swerving as it's running, so it's probably not able to get a bunch of momentum just to rip it off. Whereas like the videos I saw with the bear was sitting, the car was parked, and the bear like put all its body weight on it and just yanked. But same thing, if the bear was trying to run beside the car that was moving, I don't think the bear would have been able to necessarily do that either. So as the car is swerving and stuff, this thing then jumped on the hood and started smashing the crap out of the windshield and the hood. But then like another car was coming and they were swerving in the other lane, and I guess the car was like wah wah, and they were like wah wah on their horn too, like kicking and screaming at this thing, and it ended up like slipping and rolling off the car, and they swerved back into their lane and then went to the next upcoming gas station, and their car was all messed up. But who knows, it could have been messed up for numerous reasons. But yeah.
Well, I remember seeing that one where she's talking about 2 hunters that were out late at their camp. They got surprised by one, and the guy hit, I believe it was a 12 gauge, hit it, and it disappeared. So they got in there, one of those side by sides, but with the hopped up motors, so they go like 40. And they take off, and next thing you know, the dogman's running beside it, even with that gaping wound in his chest. And the passenger was just in shock, so he couldn't do anything. The driver's driving, and all of a sudden, the guy said he could hear the motor revving but the thing started slowing down, and he could see where the Dogman had reached in front of it, grabbed it by the headlight, and was intentionally slowing it down. And as he looked over, it actually grinned at him. And then that
That's
was
so creepy.
when the partner finally came to, pulled the pew pew up, and as soon as it cocked the hammer, it realized what it was and just ran off to the side of the woods.
That
So
reminds me a lot about that case from Kingston, New York, where that guy came home and all his cows were on the breaker, and then him and his buddy Gene ended up going into the forest. And
that's what it was.
oh, okay,
Now you
yeah,
see
no,
the beginning, yep, because his wife called him about the cows being all on one side.
yes, super creepy encounter, and I got a chance to speak to him. I didn't speak to Gene, but yeah, no, that's a gnarly one, and they ended up blowing off a piece of its chest, and it spewed all around and ran up the tree, and then like screamed out and came back and tried to still flank them, and yeah, it was trying to slow down their four wheeler with its weight in the front of its hand. Yeah, no, that's a gnarly encounter too. But again, that ties into, it makes me wonder when all the adrenaline out though, how does that dog man feel? Because same thing has happened numerous times with bears and tigers and things that have been found mortally wounded that had circled back around, and they wanted to know what the heck hurt them, and they were going to get you, but they ended up bleeding out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it happens with people. It happens to, police officers all the time when someone has certain substances in their body and, they take on 5 or 6 guys, and then all of a sudden, once that wears off, they're in the hospital for days. Yet at the time, you're taking on 5 different guys and who are trained to subdue the situation. And it's amazing what adrenaline can really do to something.
That's all I'm saying. I mean, there's athletes that have played through an injury for a whole game. They realize after they're destroyed. For example, I'm a big hockey guy, Jake DeBrusk. I'm a Bruins guy, but we actually just traded him to Vancouver. Either way, at the outdoor game in Fenway Park, he broke his leg, bro, at the halfway through the second period. He played the whole game, and then after the game,
Uh,
they figured out broke his leg, so he missed quite a bit of time. But again, that's just all I'm trying to say with adrenaline. There's times where people have lifted up cars, which they couldn't have normally done, but something was occurring, someone they loved or something was underneath that. And I mean, you got the case down where the person in Miami, the zombie person that was supposedly the bath salts or whatever the heck was going on that was eating that person's face. And literally the cops were unloading on this dude, and he was just throwing pieces of his own flesh that was blown off back at the police before they finally just popped him and unalived him. But again, like you were saying, there's just a lot that goes into it with substances and adrenaline. And I mean, how many times does that happen in car accidents? People that are super drunk and things like that don't actually at the point in time realize how traumatic the injury really is, you know?
oh, yeah. You can't feel it, so they're fine. And then when that wears off, then it's a whole nother story.
Exactly, man, unfortunately. So, but it was definitely great to get you back on tonight, man, like always, and pick your mind and get your insight as to what the heck is going on. And especially pretty interesting and cool to be able to share some encounters from Asia and especially China. I have some more from Japan, and I have a couple from Vietnam and such too. So at some point, I definitely have some others if you're interested in hearing more about Asia for sure.
I've been looking into this more and more because, the topic actually has me right up there tied up with, Bigfoot now, as far as my interest, because it seems like wherever there's possibility for Bigfoot, it sounds like there's more, people willing to come forward now with Dogman, which opens up, where the orang pendek is China. I believe that's the Yeren, if I remember right. So they got their version, Japan. So I'm really interested in starting to hear these things.
100%. And people should, again, pump the brakes on, oh, there's no historical aspects. I mean, come on, dude, the Aztecs have, drawings of dog people. Explain to me how that's not a historical reference. The last time I checked, the Aztecs were around quite a long time ago.
Yeah, all the legends and everything have a grain of truth to it. So
Exactly, my friend. But perfect, dude. Thank you so much again for your time.
I appreciate being on here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm, and I will catch you on the next one.